This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Welcome back to another episode of The Blue Turf. This is Thad Bell. With me, as always, Eric Bergroot, fine, upstanding scholar and a gentleman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Thad. How are you?
I'm good. I was almost running late to this pod because I had a long interview earlier today, which will be probably be a separate pod that'll come up later with Mr. Zach Reggett. So I think
Mr.
people
Zach
will want to
Reggett, who's 4th in the league in scoring goals right now.
Yeah, but apparently he wasn't up to par for some other teams, apparently. But anyway, that's another story. How excited are you to see the Comets go play Baltimore this weekend?
We talk about road games just about every episode, Thad. And what's interesting is other shows across the league are now picking this up in terms of looking at particularly how the Eastern teams are performing on the road. And it's been a challenge. It seems like most of the time, with some exceptions, the Eastern teams are dominating at home. I think Milwaukee's found a way to win in St. Louis more so than the Comets have this year. But Baltimore is beatable at home. But there's this mystique about CQ Arena being this small field that nobody can win on. And yet, you go back over the last few seasons that Baltimore's played in, teams have gone in there and have won. And dare I mention that the Comets' last championship was on the road in Baltimore. And so a good test for this team. We said this a couple weeks ago, heading into that game at Florida off a big win at home. Will they maintain the momentum? I guess we'll see Friday night.
Yeah, and teams have to play wherever they are. I mean, size of the field changes, the quality of the turf changes, the bounce off the boards change. So every team has to be a little bit different. The size of field in Baltimore does perhaps force a little bit more different style of play for teams coming in because it's less open, less room to run.
Well, let me draw you a parallel. The San Diego Sockers went into Chihuahua, and Chihuahua's field is small too. And San Diego hyped up the fact that they were shorthanded because of primarily red cards, and they won in Chihuahua. So if you're a good team, you will find a way to win in any arena. Indoor, outdoor, big, small, in between size.
Yeah, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate to that, though. You're right. A good team should win on the road, should be able to do all these things. The flip side of it is it does have an effect. So you have to be a very good team or really on that day sometimes. And the tighter the competition is, the closer the teams are, the more that home field advantage in those cases does come into play.
I stand by what I said, and I agree with what you said. And so, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be another opportunity for the Comets to show that they can win on the road. It's been tight this year. They've gotten an overtime win in St. Louis, but we keep talking about the need to grab 3 points wherever you can find them. And this would be a really good opportunity as they're battling for that third spot right now with Baltimore in the Eastern Conference.
Well, and Florida's a couple points ahead of them also. So they're kind of battling with everybody at the moment.
So if you think about it, there's games against Baltimore and Florida coming up, and actually Milwaukee too. So although they sit right now tied for third, 3 points behind second and 4 points behind first, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, they can control their own destiny in terms of moving up the standings.
They could be into first, or they could be into, I'll say fifth. I doubt they could drop to sixth, but you never know.
Utica, you mentioned fifth. Utica currently in fifth spot, 4 points behind the Comets. They have their Mexican road trip this weekend, so they have to go to Chihuahua and they have to go to Monterrey. Chihuahua, other than that loss to San Diego, has demonstrated how tough they are at home. And Monterrey, people were expressing doubts about them. I think that they demonstrated last night as we record this, to Mesquite, that they are a dominant team. They thumped Mesquite at home. And so no easy task here for Utica, trying to move their way up the standings.
Yeah, Monterrey is actually a team I expected to be a little bit better this year, a little higher in the standings, but it's not the way it's turned out so far. All right, before we do a little farther into Baltimore, I guess we should talk about the last game. A entertaining, what was it, 8-4?
It wound up being 8-4. Victory over Milwaukee Wave.
The dreaded Wave.
Well, let's set the stage, particularly for our listeners who might not have been at the game or watched it. We found out right before kickoff that Ian Bennett wasn't going to be able to play. And what we were able to piece together is he picked up an injury at practice Friday after the injury report had been submitted to the league. So this came as a surprise to us. It was interesting to read some of the comments in the Twitch chat, because Milwaukee fans all of a sudden were excusing anything that was about to happen because Ian Bennett wasn't there. And I think you saw the difference without Ian Bennett in the lineup. But that being said, I think the Comets put up such a dominant performance that they would have won regardless.
Yeah, it may have been a little tighter, though, quite honestly, because Ian always scores on the Comets.
You mentioned Zach Reggett, 2 goals for him, and he wasn't even the number one star of the game. Head coach Leo Gibson on the back line, 2 goals and 2 assists. And big shout out to Neto for all the comments he receives from visiting fans and a few home fans. 25 saves, which he came up big for them that game, and everything seemed to click. Defense was better. The scoring was terrific, spread out all over the place. I still think the Comets are susceptible to counterattacks, and you saw that at least on one of the Milwaukee goals. But all in all, a really good performance by that Comets team.
It did feel like they did better at limiting those counterattacks, though. I think they allowed fewer of them, and they were a little bit less dangerous.
I think they recognize, well, teams watch video, right? They watch video of their opponents, and they watch video of their own performance. And it's not hard to see when you watch a typical Comets game. Empire is the same way. When you have teams that want to score a lot of goals, you lose the ball, you don't score, and the other team's going to try to counter you. And I think the challenge for the Comets is they're thin on the back line right now. 4 defenders, and that includes Leo Gibson having moved himself from target forward to defender. And without James Togba in the lineup right now, there's not a lot of speed in the back, which makes it harder to defend the counterattack.
Yeah, and I don't have any real new Togba update other than I've seen him showing up to more stuff and looking okay, but I know he hasn't been in practice that I know of yet, so he's obviously not that close to returning.
So you're looking at 4 unless the team is able to make a move and bring somebody else in. But for me, I think they're fine at goal. Defense, as long as everybody stays healthy, they've got what it takes to play good games, game in and game out. I think that the special teams defense looked really good on Sunday, and they're starting to click on the offense on the power play with Souza, Ray Lee, Leo Gibson, and Zach Rega. That's a pretty formidable group there on the power play. And then midfielders and forwards are scoring. We've seen Milos Vucic now score fairly consistently the last month or so. Lucas Souza has been terrific for sure. And then when you can bring in somebody like Zach Rega in the lineup and 7 goals in his first 2 home games?
Yeah, that's not too shabby of a start there. Now we just need him to score like those 2 or 3 goals on the road every game, right?
That's it.
Yeah, it still amazes me, but that's for another pod. I do feel like the overall game was like, I mean, you listed the defense was better. They were a little better, not allowing the counters, better on offense, better on special teams. It just seemed like a much more complete game all the way around. They could have been a little bit better here or there, and they will be or should be.
I think so too. The other thing I've noticed the last, I'd say 3 or so games, is they've cut down on the number of penalties, which Comets have a reputation as a team that gets penalties all the time, particularly on the road. And I think they've been more disciplined, and you saw that. In fact, I haven't been able to use as many of my running joke about the Rapitrol and Kenny Loggins in too many recent games because they've been cutting that down. And that's critical too, because ultimately those penalties could make or break not only a game, but a season.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was another one. In fact, I think Neto pointed that out after the game when I was talking to him about how they had to focus on cutting that down because obviously it's not a good position to be in, being a man down in indoor soccer. All right. Zach scored a couple goals. Leo Gibson got the 2 goals and a couple assists. Sosa was really good. Neto was really good. Anybody else stand out in that last game for you?
This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool. It helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements. Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
I think Vucic is quietly figuring this game out. It is a transition from the outdoor game to the indoor game. And we're starting to, he's not scoring 3 goals a game, but he's consistently putting in goals, which I think is critical. I think Ramon Palmer is a quiet leader on the team. He did get a goal the other game. He's not expected to score, but he can score when needed, which I think is good. At Target, what's been interesting, I think Junior Kazim is becoming a force. Teams are starting to, not that they weren't taking him seriously, but they're taking him seriously. And so the goals aren't coming maybe the way he wants, but I think he puts in the shifts that the Comets need. Rion Marks puts in the shifts the Comets need. He hasn't been scoring as much as we would expect, but the goals are coming here and there. But if Rega can keep scoring the way he has been, we won't be asking where are the goals coming from like we've had to do so much of this season.
When I asked you about that, you pointed out Vucic's been playing better. I was just double checking his stats because he's only played 6 games this year with having had that visa issue, and he has 3 goals in those 6 games, 3 goals in the last 4 games, and the one game he didn't get a goal in, he had an assist. So he is becoming a much better, consistent performer in that regard.
I think so too. I mean, ultimately, you can't expect anybody to score consistently 2-3 goals a game. That's unrealistic. But you don't have to have the same player hot every night.
No.
As long as multiple players are contributing, the goals are going to come from somewhere. And I think there are enough players who have something to contribute to this offense that should keep the Comets in just about every game.
And just looking at the goal scorers for Kansas City right now, like you said, you can't expect anybody to score 2 goals every night. However, when you do have a lineup of Reggett, Sousa, Sosa, Gibson, Togba when he's healthy, Rion, you can expect at least one of those guys to have a 2-goal night almost every night, maybe 3.
Yeah,
somebody's hot.
If you look at the league leaders, there are Comets have 2 players in the 3 key categories. So Sosa is 1 goal short of being the assist leader. Leo Gibson's in the top 10. Zach Reggett is 4th in the league in scoring, and Lucas Sousa is 7th. And then if you look at overall points, Reggett and Sosa are in the top 10. So it's not just one player. There's multiple players involved, which is good. And I think you'd want to see consistency across the board, and that multiple players are getting involved in the offense.
And one other I'm going to throw in there too. I mean, there's obviously a lot of other players, but Christian Andreas, he's got 5 goals in just the 9 games he's played so far this year. If he'd have played the full season, that would put him more up in the double digits category. So
let me throw one other stat for you to consider, and with the understanding that the number of games that teams have played are a little unbalanced. The league leader in saves is Nicolau Neto, 219 saves. That's a lot of saves. And so Kansas City doesn't rely on shot blockers as some other teams do, where you see defenders leading the league in shot blocks or blocked shots. Neto saves a lot, and we saw 25 last weekend. And so for some critics of his will point out that he gets scored on low, which, I mean, it's going to happen, but you're going to get beat in all sorts of different places in this game. We've seen multiple goalkeepers get nutmegged, including Willie B on Sunday, but I would challenge any fan of the game, put yourself about 20 feet away from Zach Reggett when he's on, and let me know if you're going to be able to stop his shot, whether it's high between your legs, low, or anywhere else.
No, that dude's got a laser when he hits it, man. Nobody is stopping it unless he just happens to hit him. All right. Speaking of Reggett, not that his name comes up a lot on this pod lately, he had been in U.S. futsal camp last week before that game and arrived that morning. The little story behind that, from what I understand, is that the flights were being delayed because of weather. So he and his U.S. futsal teammate SK drove to St. Louis, and then he found transportation back to Kansas City because he really wanted to be here to play.
That shows somebody who's a team player is putting his team first rather than individual glory. And I think his teammates respect. We heard this from John Sosa. We heard from others, the perception of the humility that he's come into camp, he's coming to this team with, and he's not coming in as a prima donna, as some might have assumed. He's coming in as somebody who wants to earn the respect of his teammates and to do what he can to help everybody get a ring.
When I was talking to him earlier today, he was telling me about that story about how to get back, and I forget the exact timing, but I want to say he arrived at about noon for, I think it was a 4:00 game, and so he didn't have much time, much rest, and he had been in communication with the Comets trainer, Sean.
Humorous.
Yeah, I'm always afraid I'm going to say that name wrong, but because I always just say Sean. Sean's a good guy, but he was in communications with him. So when he arrived, Sean had everything ready, set up to give him the best chance to perform, chiropractor, massage person, whatever. And he gave the shout out to Sean when I was talking to him. So I wanted to communicate that also here and give Sean, a guy who doesn't always get enough credit.
That's a great story too. Is ultimately, if you're going to win a championship, it's not just the players on the field, it's not just the coaches, but there are unsung heroes, in some cases heroines, all throughout the team who make that championship possible.
Yeah, a little off topic, but I remember seeing that there was some trainer that nobody knew the name of who helped some guy named Patrick Mahomes heal his ankle enough that he could play in the little game that they were playing a couple weeks ago.
Imagine that.
So they made sure to get her picture out there that she was the one that helped to get the process there for him to get his ankle ready. All right. Anything else from the Milwaukee game?
I think we covered it, other than, as usual, there's for me, it's a more intense rivalry than KC St. Louis. I think you see it on the field. You definitely see it between the fan bases, and ultimately the Comets have done what they've needed to do so far this season. They have to go up there one more time, and that'll be a really good test to see if the Comets can get some points on the black turf.
Did you see any Milwaukee sucks signs or anything like that from the Kansas City faithful?
Oh, I didn't see that. And no Wave fan got into anything in Kansas City. In fact, I had dinner with some Wave fans after the game, and I think it's all good. My perception is there are some Milwaukee fans that want to make this into a spirited rivalry in a certain way, and I don't know that Kansas City fans want to follow suit the way that Wave fans want them to, but it is what it is.
That was another little thing from Neto, and when you were talking to him after the game, and I think I forget the exact wording, but he tried to say that they were taking the high road in this process.
So what's funny is I had to give some thought to who I was going to interview, and I had interviewed Zach the previous game, his debut in Kansas City, and I had recently interviewed Leo on the field, and I just sort of had this sense of there was a lot of banter in that fourth quarter in the Twitch chat, and Milwaukee fans were starting to lose it. I thought, wouldn't it be awesome to interview Neto and just see what happens? Although I didn't know what he was going to say down there, but let's just say I was inspired to select Neto based on the banter and chatter in the Twitch chat.
And Neto, again, he made the comment. He kind of tweaked them a little bit, but he still kind of took the high road at the same time. So,
yeah, and he earned the third star. I think on my ballot, I had him as second star of the game. So, I mean, legitimately, he had a great game, and yet there's some people who want to critique him on certain goals. The thing about indoor soccer is it is so rare for any goalkeeper to have a perfect game. And yes, Milwaukee shut out St. Louis, and that's fine. But
that probably says almost as much about St. Louis as it does the keepers. I mean, great job, obviously, but
it's rare. And so you can get very picky on anything, but ultimately what you want to see is consistency, and what you want to see is results. And if I have a goalkeeper who's making a lot of saves, maybe regrets a goal or two they gave up a game, but the wins are coming, I want to focus on the wins rather than assuming that everything has to be perfect.
Yeah, no keeper in indoor is going to have a perfect game, like you said. It's very rare. I think I saw a stat that was the 150th shutout in like indoor history.
Yeah. So on the other thing is, if we were going to apply the same logic, then we would critique every goal scorer who skies a shot. Think about how many times you're at Cable Dom Arena and you see a player hit a ball into the stands. If we're using the same logic that every time a goalkeeper gives up a goal that may or may not be questionable, we're going to critique him. most people don't apply the same logic to a goal scorer who has a really good opportunity, wide open space, and puts it up into the net.
Yeah, I think I do, but it's just harder to call out the 4 people who had a bad shooting day when there's one keeper. But no, I understand what you're saying. All right. I know we already talked a little bit about Baltimore, but back to that now. I walked into the world famous KC Soccer Dome this morning,
I don't even
and
have to say it anymore. You've got it.
yeah, I don't know how I got led into doing that, but anyway, walked in and there was no player out on the field. And I'm like, am I late? Am I early? Well, they weren't out on the regular practice field. They were in the little practice field next door, so they could work in a tighter, shorter space to prepare for the game.
Smart.
So I watched from over there for a little while, and it was interesting to listen to. I don't, because I'm not going to give away their training secrets too much, but it was just fun to listen to and watch that practice and preparation for the different environment that they will play in.
Well, the space is tighter, but ultimately some of the fundamentals are the same in terms of defend as a team, pass the ball well, take advantage of special teams. That doesn't change even on a smaller field, but I think that a lot of it is mental too, which is if you lose the ball on a longer field, you have more time to recover, not so much on a shorter field. So in some cases, it's as much mental as it is physical when you're playing an environment like that.
Yeah, the defense, when they're controlling the ball, needs to be extremely careful not to turn it over. We've already talked about the speed, but that they can shoot from almost, a shorter field allows them to shoot from a what would appear to be a farther distance, but not. I didn't say that very well, but you know what I mean.
I do, and Baltimore has multiple players who can score, but Lucas Roque is having himself quite the season. 28 goals in 17 games, and legitimately has positioned himself as an MVP candidate, and scoring at home, scoring on the road. But they have 4 players with 10 goals or more, and so it's not just Roque. It's multiple players. The other person I've been impressed with, and I haven't seen a lot of Baltimore play this year, but what I've seen is they picked up Patrick Thompson, who has 6 goals from the back line. And so it's not just the forwards who are contributing to the Blast success. They're finding different ways to score. And William Banzela, by the way, it's his birthday today, so we're recording it. Happy birthday, William. He's tough anywhere, but particularly there at CQ.
Yeah, he's I was looking through the roster before we started talking, and there's so many names. I used to know every Baltimore player, but it's down to just a few that I know really well now.
Well, the one that doesn't get as much conversation as he did in the past is Max Ferdinand. Talk about somebody who's spent a lot of time tormenting the Comets, but he's had health issues over the last couple of years. He's back, and the way he used to do this with Ian Bennett in terms of setting Ian Bennett up to score, he now has some options here in Baltimore to do the same thing. Yeah,
he's I think 7 goals in 14 games, but 10 assists. So yeah, he's a name that had disappeared for a little while, but always a guy who would kill the Comets too. All right, anything else we should discuss about Baltimore this week? Other than we got to get points on the road.
They feel confident at home, right? So I would say that they're going to come into this game feeling like they should win, which I totally get. Is there an opportunity for the Comets to steal points? Absolutely. Baltimore is 7-1 at home, so it's not like they've been perfect. This could be a really big momentum maker or breaker for the Comets. They've won this past weekend, but it seems like they win at home and then all the momentum stops on the road. If they could pick this one up, then all of a sudden you can see how March might be a really good month for this franchise.
Yeah, especially with having another game against Baltimore at home after that. and then all the,
And
like we said earlier,
Florida,
all the other
yeah.
top teams.
Yep, that's right.
It is kind of make or break time for the Comets if the moves they've made pay off. And again, I think they'll be in the playoffs, whether it's a sneak into the playoffs or barge into it at the near the top. But it's better to barge into it with some momentum and some confidence.
Yeah, that's a fact. And they have 7 games left. Still have an opportunity at first place, but we'll see. I mean, as I said earlier, in a way, they control their own destiny. That if they keep winning, the teams that they'll be beating are ahead of them in the standings, so they can literally lift themselves up.
All right. With that, I think we have probably talked enough about these 2 games and everything else. So I appreciate the time, Eric.
As always, thanks, Thad.
We are out.